Jeremy Bradley here, still joined by Jeff Probst, host of Survivor, getting a behind-the-scenes look, an inside glimpse at the production of the hit CBS reality show. And now, we also see a lot of wildlife. I don't know if it's B-roll or if you guys are actually shooting it when you're out there, but there's that element of wildlife. So how does everybody stay safe, right? We see these night vision video of, rats running around or whatever. I mean, how do you ensure everybody's safety?
There's two sides to it. The rats and monkeys and things like that, they're on their own, and they do come into camp, and they will, if you leave food out, they will eat it and destroy your camp because you're in their world. You have no idea where they are. They're just sitting there watching. But the snakes and things like that, I mean, for the most part, those animals leave when you're around. But we do have a wildlife expert guy. Carl is usually out there, and he goes to the camps, and he goes to the challenge locations, and like if we're rehearsing a challenge, he will be there 2 hours before we get there, walking through. In the Philippines, he'd be walking through the rice fields looking for snakes, and he finds them. It's amazing how many times he finds a snake. You think, there aren't any out there, and he'll say, there are lots out there. I found these 3, and he'll have them in some sort of container, and he takes them somewhere else and releases them. He loves his job with these animals that he loves, and he cares for them so much. But then once a season, some crew member will defy the rule that says you have to wear closed-toed shoes, and they'll be in flip-flops, and they'll get bitten, and then we'll wrap them from foot to waist and put them in the chopper and send them to Manila to see if it's poisonous, and and hope that it isn't. It's a real deal. We're just very conscious of it, and we don't want any problems, so we take very few risks. And we always have an evacuation plan. We have an evacuation plan for anything that would happen involving, a typhoon or a tsunami. We have an evacuation plan for volcanoes, if that's the need. And we always have an evacuation plan for an individual who's injured with our chopper team and our medical team. And it's pretty good. If you're going to get hurt, you're in good hands, because you'll be on a chopper in less than half an hour, no matter where you are. You'll be flown directly to the nearest hospital where they are waiting. We have a deal with them, and you drop and go, and you're in good care.
When contestants are hunting, I mean, are there different rules in different countries about what you can hunt and what you can't? Like, how do they know what they should eat and that's not going to poison them? Are they briefed on that before they get out there?
Yeah, we do. Before the show, we put them through a little Survivor training school, which is usually half a day to a day, and basically we give them this little booklet we put together, and it says these are berries that are okay to eat, and these are berries that are not, and these are trees that if you rub up against them, they'll make your skin burn, and these are trees that make a good fire starter. What's amazing to me is when I check in with the producers, how the majority of people don't even look at them. They're like, yeah, I got it. I know brown nuts are good and the red nuts are bad. I got it. Thanks, man. And then they get out there and, somebody eats a nut and they're sick for 2 days. And you go, God, guys, I know you're Americans and you think you know everything, but that's why we gave you that book.
Yeah.
We don't want you to get, sick. I mean, we do, kind of, but not by eating a bad berry.
And this season you've got some of the guys from the past. Scariest moment ever that you've had on this show?
Oh, that's easy. The scariest moment for me was we had a guy, he was on this season, Russell, a black guy with dreadlocks, and he was on a few years ago, and he got really dehydrated, truly dehydrated, like what is medically called dehydration, where his body started to shut down. He passed out, and we brought him to, and we hadn't pulled him from the game yet because we thought he might be able to come back. And he was sitting there, and he was having a very hard time telling us where he was, how many numbers we were, what his birthday, those kind of things. But he was still, we don't pull anyone until it's absolutely necessary. And then, so we set him back up, and we're going to take his blood pressure, and his eyes rolled in the back of his head, and he was done. And they had a heart monitor on him, and it dropped from I can't remember now, but I think it was 80 beats to 60 beats. It was an extraordinary drop, fast. And the doctor looked at me as if to say, he's done, and I looked back as if to say, yep, I'm right there with you, and they gave him a shot of something and brought him back. But in those 2 or 3 seconds, a lot went through my head, including, okay, how are we going to deal with our first death on Survivor?
Well, I hate to end the segment on such a down note, but we've got to get back to the music. We're going to have more with Survivor host Jeff Probst coming up right after this here on Top of the Charts and the Open Road. And special thanks to our listeners tuned in on SpeakFreeCelebWatch.com.
Today's best music with Jeremy Bradley.
Jeremy Bradley here on Top of the Charts and the Open Road, still talking with Jeff Probst, host of Survivor on CBS. Now, every season it's always some tropical destination. It's hot, it's sweaty, there's beaches. Why is Survivor never shot during the winter or in like a northern destination? What's the reason for that?
Well, there's a couple of reasons. There is that idea of people with very little clothing, not because of the sexy part of it, just because of the vulnerability. When you see a guy that all he has on is a pair of shorts or underwear, and he's trying to build a shelter in the pouring rain, there's something it brings it down to a base level of like, look at that, man, they have nothing. So there is that. The other side of the coin is the cold weather is hard for us to shoot in. Some of the gear, would have a hard time, and humans tend to congregate, so they're probably going to be in an igloo, just sitting in there trying to keep warm, and it doesn't lend itself to great moments, because one of the things that Survivor counts on is that somebody's going to climb a tree, and somebody's going to fish with a Hawaiian sling, while somebody else is going to be lounging in the sun. So that weather also helps foster the story.
What was the best or your most favorite Survivor moment ever?
Man, almost impossible, really, to answer, because there's just been so many great moments. I have favorite moments every season, and if you have to pick one favorite moment, I would pick the very first season, and it wouldn't be when Richard Hatch won. It would be 2 days before, when there was a final challenge and there was 3 people left, and it was this woman Kelly and Richard Hatch who won, and this guy Rudy, who was a 72-year-old Navy SEAL. And it was the last challenge, and it was our first season, and we're in the middle of the sun, and it was beating down, and they had mud on their face. They had just walked over fire, I think, and all Rudy had to do was hang on to this idol longer than anyone else, and he would win. Everybody loved Rudy, and we all knew he was going to win. It was done. Our first season was done. It was in the bag because he's a Navy SEAL. Who's going to outlast a Navy SEAL? Nobody. Right. And in one little moment, while I'm talking to Rudy, he scratches his head like he can't remember the answer to a question, and it was over. And in that moment, I thought, oh my God, our show's going to tank. we just lost our star. And then, Richard Hatch wins and becomes one of the single most notorious reality show contestants of all time, and turned out to be fantastic because he was a villain. And it was great. We never even considered how good that could be for the show, and it turned out to be fantastic. And Rudy's a great guy, and we still love Rudy, but Richard was clearly a winner that we never saw coming.
And so, that must be a huge deal for you to be involved in, the longest run. Is it the longest running reality show ever?
I think, yeah. We were the first, unless you include, with respect, things like Real World, and
right.
Or Cops, probably.
Right.
Yes, in terms of like competition reality, if you get rid of the arguments, yes, we were the first, and sort of set the way for many of the, for all the shows that came. And yeah, I was in the right place at the right time. Luck is such a big part of everything, and I just got lucky. I got lucky that I was smart enough to say no to a lot of jobs that came before Survivor, just weren't tickling my fancy, and I just waited. And then I was really lucky that I connected with Mark, and that he saw something in me and said, I'm going to give you the job. He could have given it to a lot of people. Probably still be on the air, and who knows what I'd be doing, but he gave it to me.
Well, Jeff Probst originally called in to talk about his daytime talk show, and then we ended up having a bit of a Survivor chat.
Thanks for having me on.
No problem. And then Survivor Wednesdays, 8, 7 Central on CBS. Jeff, thanks for voting me off my own show. Great chatting with you today.
Good chatting with you.
Jeff Probst, ladies and gentlemen, we've got to get back to the music. Oh, he just said I'm back on my show. You guys didn't hear that. He said it in my ear. We're back with more music right now on Top of the Charts and the Open Road.
Today's best music with Jeremy Bradley.